German Shepherd was trapped between two moving storage containers. What Baby did next was heroic. What happened next will shock you. The story you're about to listen to will leave you speechless. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment below about where you're watching from. The morning sun cast long shadows across the shipping yard in Riverside, a small town where the sound of metal containers and diesel engines had become as familiar as birdsong. 5-year-old Kai pressed his small face against the chain-link fence, watching the massive cranes move containers like building blocks. His dark eyes tracked every movement with the intensity of someone twice his age. "Stay close, buddy," Mason called out, adjusting his hard hat as he walked toward the forklift bay. At 32, Mason had the weathered hands of someone who'd worked hard his entire life, but his eyes still held the gentle warmth reserved only for his son. They had been in Riverside for 3 months now, ever since the divorce papers were signed, and Mason needed a fresh start somewhere quiet. Kai didn't respond with words. He never did. Instead, he gave a small nod and continued watching the containers. The boy had been silent since his mother left, and doctors couldn't find anything wrong. Mason had learned to read his son's expressions, the way he tilted his head when curious, or how his fingers drummed against his leg when he was thinking hard about something. The Riverside shipping yard wasn't the biggest facility in the state, but it was steady work. Mason operated the yellow forklift that moved smaller containers around the yard, while the massive automated cranes handled the bigger cargo. Most of the workers had been there for years, forming a tight-knit crew that looked out for each other. They'd all grown fond of the quiet little boy who showed up every day after school, sitting on the wooden bench near the fence. "Morning, Mason," called out Tommy, a heavy-set man in his 50s who ran the crane operations. "Little man's here early today." Mason glanced at his watch. It was only 7:30, but Kai had been restless all morning, tugging at Mason's sleeve until they left the house. "Yeah, he was up before sunrise. Something's got him excited." Kai wandered closer to the fence, his small hands wrapping around the metal links. He watched as Container 47B slowly moved along the automated track system. The yard used a computerized scheduling system that moved containers according to shipping dates and destinations. Workers had learned to stay clear of the designated pathways when the automated system was running. "See that big red one, Kai?" Mason pointed to a container being lifted by the crane. "That's going all the way to Japan. Can you imagine? Your drawing could be in there, traveling across the ocean." Kai's eyes lit up slightly. He loved drawing, filling notebooks with sketches of the containers, cranes, and trucks. His artwork covered their small apartments, refrigerator, each drawing signed with a careful K in the corner. The morning routine was always the same. Mason would clock in, check his equipment, and begin the day's assignments while Kai sat on his bench, watching everything with quiet fascination. The other workers had grown protective of the boy, always making sure he had a juice box or a snack from someone's lunch. "He's got good instincts," Tommy often said. "Kid always knows when something's off before we do." It was true. Kai had an unusual ability to sense when machinery was about to malfunction or when weather was changing. Last week he'd tugged at Mason's sleeve and pointed to the crane just minutes before a hydraulic line burst. The workers had started calling him their little warning system. The shipping yard operated on a precise schedule. Containers arrived by truck and rail, were sorted by destination, and moved through the automated system before being loaded onto ships at the nearby port. The computerized system ran every afternoon from 2 to 4, when most workers took their lunch break. During those 2 hours, the yard became a carefully choreographed dance of metal and machinery. Kai had learned the schedule by heart. He knew which containers moved on which days, which cranes were used for different types of cargo, and even which trucks arrived at specific times. His notebook was filled with detailed drawings of the yard's layout, complete with arrows showing how everything moved. "You know, buddy," Mason said during lunch, sitting beside Kai on the bench, "sometimes I think you understand this place better than the rest of us." Kai looked up at his father and smiled. It was a rare, genuine smile that made Mason's heart skip. The boy reached into his backpack and pulled out his newest drawing. It showed the shipping yard from above, with tiny figures of workers scattered throughout. In the corner, he'd drawn himself and Mason, holding hands near the fence. "That's beautiful, Kai. You want to show Tommy?" The boy nodded and carefully walked over to where Tommy was checking inventory sheets. He tugged gently on the man's sleeve and held up the drawing. Well, would you look at that, Tommy said, kneeling down to Kai's level. You even got the crane angles right. You're going to be an engineer someday, little man. Kai beamed and ran back to his father, clutching the drawing to his chest. The afternoon shift was beginning, and workers were gathering their tools for the post-lunch assignments. Mason noticed Kai seemed more restless than usual, standing up from the bench and walking closer to the fence. The boy's eyes were fixed on the container loading area, where the automated system would begin its scheduled run in 20 minutes. "What's got you so interested today?" Mason asked, walking over to join his son. Kai pointed toward container 23C, a blue shipping container that had arrived that morning. Something about it seemed different, though Mason couldn't put his finger on what. The container looked identical to dozens of others in the yard, but Kai kept staring at it with unusual intensity. "Mason, we're starting the automated run in 15 minutes, called out Sarah, the shift supervisor. "Better get Kai settled on the bench. You know the rules about the safety perimeter." Mason nodded and gently guided Kai back to the bench. The boy went reluctantly, constantly looking back toward the container area. His fingers drummed against his leg in the pattern Mason recognized as deep concentration. The automated system hummed to life at exactly 2 o'clock. Massive cranes began lifting containers with mechanical precision, while the track system moved others along predetermined routes. Workers stayed clear of the designated pathways, watching from safe distances as the computerized choreography unfolded. Kai stood up from the bench abruptly. "Sit down, buddy," Mason said gently. "Remember the rules." But Kai wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on something near container 23C, and his expression had changed from curiosity to alarm. He started walking toward the fence, then broke into a run. "Kai, stop!" Mason shouted, dropping his clipboard and chasing after his son. The boy squeezed through a gap in the fence that adults couldn't fit through. Mason watched in horror as Kai ran directly into the automated container area, weaving between moving machinery with an agility that seemed impossible for a 5-year-old. "Shut it down!" Mason screamed to the control booth. "Shut down the system!" But the automated system had a 30-second delay for safety shutdowns. Kai was already deep in the container maze, running towards something Mason couldn't see. The boy disappeared behind container 23C just as 2 massive containers began converging on the same track. Tommy rushed to the manual override controls, while Sarah radioed for emergency backup. Mason climbed over the fence, tearing his shirt on the metal links in his desperation to reach his son. When Mason rounded container 23C, he found something that made his blood run cold. Kai was crouched in the narrow space between 2 slowly moving containers, his small arms wrapped around a large German shepherd. The dog was trapped beneath a fallen metal beam, its breathing labored and its eyes filled with pain. Blood matted its brown and black fur, and one of its hind legs was twisted at an unnatural angle. But that wasn't the most shocking part. Kai was talking. "It's okay," the boy whispered to the dog, his voice barely audible above the machinery. "I'm here. I'm here." Mason stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. His son, who hadn't spoken a word in 8 months, was whispering comfort to an injured animal trapped between 2 moving containers. The containers were still moving, their automated systems oblivious to the drama unfolding in the narrow space between them. The gap was getting smaller with each passing second, and Mason realized with growing horror that both his son and the dog would be crushed if the containers continued their programmed path. "The system's not responding," Tommy shouted from the control booth. "Something's wrong with the override." Mason looked at the containers, then at his son, then at the injured dog. The space between the metal walls was now less than 4 feet wide and shrinking steadily. Kai showed no sign of leaving the dog's side, his small hand stroking the animal's head with gentle determination. "Kai, you have to move," Mason called out, his voice cracking with panic. The boy looked up at his father, and Mason saw something in his son's eyes that he'd never seen before. Pure, unwavering resolve. Kai shook his head and tightened his grip on the dog. "No," Kai said clearly, his voice carrying despite the noise of machinery. "I won't leave him." The containers were now less than 3 feet apart. Workers gathered around the perimeter, shouting suggestions and trying frantically to find a way to stop the automated system. But everyone knew the truth that no one wanted to speak aloud. They had less than 12 minutes before the containers would complete their programmed movement and crush everything in their path. The German shepherd lifted its head weakly, looking directly at Kai with eyes that seemed to understand everything. The dog's breathing was shallow, each exhale creating small puffs of dust in the confined space. Its collar was barely visible beneath the matted fur, but Mason could see something metallic glinting in the afternoon light. "Kai, listen to me," Mason said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I need you to crawl out of there right now. We'll find another way to help the dog." "No, Dad." Kai's voice was crystal clear, each word deliberate and strong. "He's scared. He needs me." The workers around the perimeter fell silent. Even Tommy stopped shouting instructions to the control booth. Everyone stared at the small boy who was speaking for the first time in months, his words cutting through the chaos like a bell. Sarah ran up to Mason, her face pale. "The main computer's locked up. We can't override the system remotely. Someone's going to have to manually disconnect the power cables, but they're located right next to the containers." Mason's mind raced. The power junction was less than 10 feet from where Kai crouched with the dog, but reaching it would mean entering the danger zone himself. The containers were now moving so slowly that their progress was barely visible, but Mason knew they were still closing the gap relentlessly. "How long?" he asked. 11 minutes, maybe 10, Sarah replied, checking her watch. "Once they reach the convergence point, there's no stopping them." Mason looked at his son, who was now humming softly to the injured dog. The German shepherd's tail gave a weak wag, and its eyes remained fixed on Kai's face. There was something almost supernatural about the connection between the boy and the animal, as if they understood each other on a level that went beyond words. "I'm going in," Mason announced, removing his hard hat. "You can't," Tommy protested, grabbing Mason's arm. "If those containers shift even slightly, you'll both be trapped." "My son is in there," Mason said simply. "I'm not leaving him." He squeezed through the same gap in the fence that Kai had used, his larger frame barely fitting through the twisted metal. The automated system continued its mechanical symphony around him, oblivious to the human drama playing out in its path. As Mason approached the narrow space between the containers, he could see the situation more clearly. The German shepherd was trapped beneath a heavy support beam that had somehow fallen from one of the containers. The beam was too heavy for Mason to lift alone, and the dog's position made it impossible to pull the animal free without causing more injury. "Dad," Kai said, looking up as Mason crouched beside them. "His name is Rex. He told me." Mason blinked, unsure how to respond. The dog certainly looked like a Rex, with its noble features and intelligent eyes, but Mason was more concerned with the practical problem of getting them all out alive. "Okay, buddy, Rex is a good name, but we need to figure out how to help him." Kai nodded seriously and pointed to the metal beam. "We need to lift it, but not pull him, push him through there." He indicated a small opening between the beam and the container wall. Mason examined the space Kai had pointed to. It was narrow, but it might be possible to slide the dog through if they could lift the beam just a few inches. The problem was that Mason couldn't lift the beam and guide the dog at the same time. "I need help," Mason called out to the workers gathered beyond the fence. "Can't risk it," Sarah called back. "Company policy. We can't put more people in danger." Mason felt a surge of frustration. Company policy meant nothing when his son's life was at stake. He looked around desperately for something he could use as leverage to lift the beam. "Dad," Kai said quietly. "Look." The boy was pointing to Rex's collar, which was now more visible. Mason could see that it wasn't an ordinary pet collar. It was made of heavy-duty nylon, with what looked like electronic components embedded in the fabric. Strange symbols were etched into the metal tags, and there was a small device attached that looked like a GPS tracker. "This isn't a regular dog," Mason murmured, studying the collar more closely. Rex whimpered softly, and Kai immediately returned his attention to comforting the animal. "It's okay, Rex. We're going to help you." The containers were now less than 2 feet apart. Mason could feel the walls closing in, and the mechanical sound of the automated system seemed to grow louder with each passing second. They had maybe 8 minutes left. "I have an idea," Mason said, his voice tight with concentration. "But I need you to do exactly what I tell you, okay?" Kai nodded, his small hand still resting on Rex's head. Mason positioned himself at one end of the metal beam, bracing his feet against the container wall. "When I lift this beam, you need to help Rex crawl through that opening." "Can you do that?" "Yes," Kai said without hesitation. Mason gripped the beam and began to lift. The metal was heavier than he'd expected, and his muscles strained against the weight. Slowly, inch by inch, he raised the beam until there was just enough space for Rex to crawl through. "Now, Kai!" The boy spoke softly to Rex, his voice filled with an authority that seemed impossible for a 5-year-old. "Come on, Rex. This way. You can do it." The German Shepherd, despite its injuries, began to crawl toward the opening. Its movements were painful to watch, but the dog seemed to understand that this was its only chance. Rex pushed through the narrow space, guided by Kai's gentle hands and encouraging words. "That's it, Rex. Almost there." The dog's hindquarters cleared the beam just as Mason's strength gave out. The heavy metal crashed back down, missing Rex by inches. The German Shepherd collapsed on the other side, breathing heavily but free from the trap. "We did it," Kai whispered, crawling over to Rex and wrapping his arms around the dog's neck. But Mason's relief was short-lived. The containers were still moving, and now all 3 of them were trapped in the narrowing space. The walls were less than 18 inches apart, and Mason realized with growing horror that there wasn't enough room for them to escape the way they'd come in. "Kai, we need to move to the end of the containers," Mason said urgently. "There might be more room there." They began crawling toward the far end of the narrow corridor, with Kai supporting Rex as much as his small frame would allow. The dog was larger than the boy, but Rex seemed to understand that Kai was trying to help. The animal moved slowly, dragging its injured leg, but making steady progress. As they crawled, Mason noticed something strange about the containers themselves. The walls weren't smooth like normal shipping containers. There were small vents and what looked like monitoring equipment built into the metal panels. These weren't ordinary cargo containers. "Dad, look," Kai said, pointing to a small access panel on the side of one container. Mason examined the panel. It was labeled with codes he didn't recognize, and there was a small keypad beneath a metal cover. Whatever these containers were carrying, it wasn't normal cargo. They reached the end of the corridor just as the containers closed to less than a foot apart. Mason looked around frantically for another exit, but they were trapped on 3 sides by metal walls. The only opening was the narrow gap they had just crawled through, and that was getting smaller by the second. 7 minutes, Sarah's voice called out from somewhere beyond the containers. "We're still working on the power junction." Mason felt panic rising in his chest. They were going to be crushed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. He looked at Kai, who was still cradling Rex, whispering softly to the injured dog. "I'm sorry, buddy," Mason said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Dad," Kai replied, looking up with surprising calm. "Rex has a plan." Before Mason could ask what he meant, Rex struggled to his feet. The dog moved to the access panel that Kai had noticed and began pawing at the metal cover. His claws scraped against the keypad, and Mason heard a series of electronic beeps. "What's he doing?" Mason asked. "He knows the code," Kai said matter-of-factly. "He's opening the door." Mason stared in disbelief as the access panel slid open, revealing a small tunnel that led into the container. Rex crawled through the opening, disappearing into the darkness beyond. "Rex!" Kai called out, starting to follow the dog. "Wait," Mason said, grabbing his son's arm. "We don't know what's in there." But Kai was already crawling through the opening, his small body fitting easily through the tunnel. Mason had no choice but to follow, squeezing through the tight space just as the containers closed to less than 6 inches apart. Inside the container, Mason found himself in a space that defied explanation. The walls were lined with sophisticated electronic equipment, and the air hummed with the sound of computers and ventilation systems. This wasn't a shipping container at all. It was some kind of mobile laboratory or command center. Kai was kneeling beside Rex in the center of the space, his hands exploring the dog's injuries with surprising skill. "He's hurt bad, Dad, but he's going to be okay." Mason looked around the strange environment, trying to process what he was seeing. There were monitors displaying complex data, communication equipment that looked military-grade, and what appeared to be medical supplies stored in sealed cabinets. "What is this place?" Mason whispered. Rex lifted his head and looked directly at Mason, and for a moment, the man could have sworn he saw intelligence in the dog's eyes that went far beyond what any normal animal should possess. "He's not just a dog, Dad," Kai said softly. "He's special. He's been waiting for us." Before Mason could respond, they heard voices outside the container, multiple voices speaking in low, urgent tones. Mason moved to a small viewport and peered out, his blood running cold at what he saw. Men in dark suits were surrounding the containers, and they were all carrying weapons. "We need to get out of here," Mason whispered, but as he turned back to Kai and Rex, he realized that their problems were just beginning. The dog was no longer lying down. Rex was standing, his injuries seeming less severe than they had appeared moments before. The German Shepherd moved to one of the computer terminals and placed his paw on a sensor pad. The screens around them flickered to life, displaying information that made Mason's head spin. Maps, satellite images, and what looked like classified documents flashed across the monitors. At the center of it all was a photograph of Rex, but the image was labeled with a designation that made Mason's blood run cold. Project Sentinel, Asset 7, status, missing. Kai looked up at his father, his young face serious beyond his years. "Dad, I think we're in big trouble." The sound of metal being cut came from somewhere outside the container. The men in suits were trying to get in, and Mason knew that whatever Rex was involved in, it was dangerous enough that people were willing to kill to get him back. "Can you make this thing move?" Mason asked Rex, feeling ridiculous for talking to a dog. Rex's response was to press another sensor, and suddenly the container shuddered. Mason realized with amazement that the container wasn't just a laboratory, it was a vehicle, capable of moving independently of the automated yard system. "Hold on," Mason told Kai, grabbing his son as the container began to accelerate. They were moving now, but Mason had no idea where they were going or what they were running from. All he knew was that his son had found something extraordinary in that shipping yard, and their lives would never be the same again. The container moved through the shipping yard with surprising smoothness, navigating between obstacles with precision that seemed impossible for an unmanned vehicle. Mason held Kai tightly as they felt the motion change directions several times, clearly avoiding the pursuing men. "How is this happening?" Mason asked, more to himself than to anyone else. Kai looked up at him with those serious dark eyes. "Rex is driving, Dad. He knows where to go." Mason watched in fascination as Rex operated the controls with his paws, pressing sensors and manipulating what looked like a sophisticated navigation system. The dog's movements were deliberate and confident, as if he'd done this hundreds of times before. "Rex," Kai said softly, "are you okay? Does your leg still hurt?" The German Shepherd turned his head toward the boy and made a soft whining sound that somehow conveyed reassurance. Rex's injured leg, which had appeared badly damaged just minutes before, now seemed to be supporting his weight without difficulty. "Dad, I think he was pretending," Kai said, his voice filled with wonder rather than accusation. Mason studied Rex more carefully. The blood that had matted the dog's fur was still there, but the animal's movements showed no signs of the severe injuries they'd witnessed. Either Rex was an exceptional actor, or something else entirely was going on. The container came to a smooth stop, and Rex moved away from the controls. Through the small viewport, Mason could see they were in a different part of the shipping yard, hidden behind a row of legitimate cargo containers. The sound of shouting voices and running footsteps came from somewhere in the distance, but they seemed to be getting farther away. "We lost them," Mason said with relief. Rex approached one of the medical cabinets and used his snout to open a latch. Inside, Mason saw supplies that looked far more advanced than anything he'd expect to find in a standard first aid kit. There were devices he didn't recognize, medications with labels he couldn't read, and what appeared to be surgical instruments designed for precision work. "Rex, what are you?" Mason asked quietly. The dog looked at him for a long moment, then moved to another computer terminal. Rex pressed a sequence of sensors, and a new screen appeared showing what looked like a personnel file. Mason read the information with growing amazement. Subject designation, REX-7 species, Canis, Lupus familiaris, enhanced cognitive enhancement, level 9, maximum physical modifications, regenerative healing, enhanced strength, improved sensory capacity, training completion, 100%. Mission status, active handler, Dr. Elena Vasquez, deceased. Enhanced, Mason read aloud. What does that mean? Kai was running his hands through Rex's fur, examining the areas where they'd seen blood and injuries. "Dad, look, he's all better now." Mason knelt down beside his son and saw that Kai was right. The wounds that had appeared so severe were now reduced to minor scratches. The twisted leg showed no signs of damage. It was as if Rex's body was healing itself before their eyes. "This is impossible," Mason whispered. Rex moved to another section of the equipment and activated what appeared to be a communication system. A voice crackled through the speakers, speaking in a language Mason didn't recognize. Rex listened intently, then responded with a series of barks and whines that sounded almost like a conversation. "Who is he talking to?" Kai asked. Before Mason could speculate, Rex turned to face them both. The dog's expression was more serious than any animal expression Mason had ever seen. Rex walked over to a storage compartment and used his teeth to pull out a small device that looked like a modified smartphone. "He wants us to take it," Kai said, reaching for the device. The screen activated at Kai's touch, displaying a simple interface with large, clear symbols. Mason recognized some of them as maps and communication icons, but others were completely foreign to him. "It's for us," Kai said with certainty. "He's giving it to us so we can talk to him." Mason examined the device more closely. The technology was unlike anything he'd seen before, with a screen that seemed to respond to both touch and voice commands. When Kai spoke to it, words appeared in text form on the display. "Hello, Rex," Kai said to the device. The screen immediately displayed, "Hello, Kai. You are safe now." Mason felt his legs go weak. The dog is typing? Not typing, Dad. Thinking. Rex thinks in words, and the machine understands him. Rex approached the device and seemed to focus on it intently. New text appeared. "Mason, your son is special. He heard me before the machine. This is rare." "What do you mean, Mason?" asked the device, feeling foolish for talking to what was essentially a computer operated by a dog. Kai has natural ability to communicate with enhanced subjects. Very few humans possess this talent. That is why I chose him. Mason looked between Rex and Kai, trying to process this information. "You chose him? How? When?" "I have been watching your family for 3 weeks. Kai's patterns, his behavior in the shipping yard. I recognized the signs. Today, I arranged the test." The blood in Mason's veins turned to ice. "You arranged this? You put my son in danger on purpose?" "No danger. I was never truly trapped. The scenario was designed to reveal Kai's abilities and to bring us together safely." Mason felt anger rising in his chest. "You manipulated us. You made my son think you were dying." Rex's ears drooped slightly, and new text appeared. "Deception was necessary. Men are hunting me. Traditional contact methods too dangerous. Kai was never in real danger. I protected him throughout." "The containers," Mason said, understanding dawning. "They weren't really going to crush us." "Correct. I controlled both containers through remote access. Kai was safe, but needed to believe situation was real for his abilities to manifest fully." Kai looked up at his father, his young face showing understanding beyond his years. "Dad, he needed help. The bad men want to hurt him. He was scared and alone." Mason felt his anger softening as he looked at his son. Kai's first words in months had been spoken to comfort what he believed was a dying animal. Whatever Rex's methods, he had somehow unlocked something in Kai that had been locked away since his mother left. "Why us?" Mason asked the device. "Why my son? Dr. Vasquez, my handler, was killed 3 days ago. She discovered something about the program that made her a target. Before she died, she programmed me to find someone with natural communication abilities, someone who could help me complete her mission." The screen displayed a photograph of a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. She wore a lab coat and was smiling at whoever was taking the picture. Beside her stood Rex, looking younger, but unmistakably the same dog. "What mission?" Mason asked. "Dr. Vasquez discovered that the enhancement program is being used for illegal purposes. Military contracts sold to private corporations, enhanced animals being used for assassination, corporate espionage, even terrorism. She gathered evidence before they killed her." Mason felt a chill run down his spine. "And this evidence? Hidden in my memory banks. But I cannot access it alone. I need someone who can interface with my cognitive systems directly. Someone like Kai." Mason looked at his 5-year-old son, who was calmly stroking Rex's head as if this entire conversation was the most natural thing in the world. "He's just a child. I won't let you put him in danger." "Dad," Kai said quietly, "Rex won't hurt me. He's good. The bad men are the ones who hurt people." Kai is correct, appeared on the screen. My programming prevents me from harming innocents, but the men hunting me have no such restrictions. They will kill anyone who has seen me, including your son. Mason felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. So we can't go back to our normal lives. Not until the evidence is revealed and the responsible parties are arrested. Dr. Vasquez died trying to expose this conspiracy. Her work must not be wasted. Rex moved to another part of the mobile laboratory and activated a different system. Screens around them displayed news footage from various sources, all showing the same basic story. Reports of unusual animal attacks in different parts of the country, highly trained animals appearing in locations where they shouldn't be, and several unexplained incidents involving what witnesses described as impossibly intelligent dogs and other creatures. "How many of you are there?" Mason asked. 47 enhanced subjects were created. 12 have been recaptured or killed. 23 are being used for illegal operations. 11 others are free but in hiding. I am the only one with access to the evidence. Kai studied the screen with intense concentration. "Rex, can I help you remember?" "Yes, Kai. But it requires direct mental contact. It may be uncomfortable for you." "Will it hurt him?" Mason asked, his protective instincts flaring. "No physical harm. But Kai may experience my memories as if they were his own. Some of these memories are disturbing." Mason knelt down beside his son. "Kai, buddy, this is a big decision. You don't have to do this." Kai looked up at his father with those serious dark eyes. "Dad, if we don't help Rex, the bad men will keep hurting people, and they'll hurt us too." The simple logic of a 5-year-old cut through all of Mason's complicated adult fears. Kai was right. They were already in danger simply by knowing about Rex. Their only choice was to help or to spend the rest of their lives running. "What do you need us to do?" Mason asked the device. Rex moved to the center of the laboratory space and lay down on what appeared to be a specialized platform. Sensors around the platform began to glow with soft blue light, and Mason could hear the hum of sophisticated electronics coming online. "Kai must place his hands on my head and maintain contact for approximately 5 minutes. I will share my memories of Dr. Vasquez's final days. The experience will show Kai where the evidence is hidden and how to access it." Kai walked over to Rex without hesitation, but Mason grabbed his arm gently. "Are you sure about this, buddy?" "I'm sure, Dad. Rex needs us." Mason watched as his son placed his small hands on either side of Rex's head. The sensors around the platform pulsed brighter, and both Kai and Rex seemed to enter a trance-like state. For the first minute, nothing visible happened. Then Kai began to speak, but his voice was different, older, more sophisticated, with a slight accent that Mason didn't recognize. "The files are in the quantum storage device," Kai said in this strange voice, "hidden in my collar mechanism. The access code is Elena's birthday plus the day we first met." Mason realized he was hearing Dr. Vasquez's voice coming from his son's mouth. Kai was experiencing the woman's memories as if they were his own. "The program director is General Morrison," Kai continued. "He's been selling enhanced subjects to the highest bidder. The contracts are worth millions, but the applications are terrifying. They're creating living weapons." Rex's body trembled slightly, and Kai's expression grew pained. Mason started to move forward, but the device displayed text. "Do not interrupt. Critical information being transferred." "The evidence is comprehensive," Kai said, his voice still carrying Dr. Vasquez's inflection. "Video recordings, financial documents, communications with buyers, everything needed to expose the entire operation. But Morrison knows I discovered it. He's sending assets to eliminate me. Rex must survive. He's the only proof." Suddenly, Kai's body convulsed and his eyes snapped open. He was back to his normal 5-year-old self, but tears were streaming down his cheeks. "She was so scared, Dad," Kai whispered. "But she was brave too. She loved Rex so much." Rex lifted his head and nuzzled Kai gently, making soft sounds of comfort. The platform's sensors powered down, and the device displayed, "Transfer complete. Kai now has access to all relevant memories and information." Mason pulled his son into a tight hug, feeling the boy's small body shaking with residual emotion. "What did you see, buddy?" "I know where everything is hidden," Kai said quietly, "and I know who the bad men are. Dad, we have to stop them. They're going to hurt more animals like Rex." Mason looked at Rex, who was now standing and moving toward another section of the laboratory. The dog activated a communication system and began what sounded like a complex conversation in that strange language of barks and electronic tones. "Who is he talking to?" Mason asked. Kai listened for a moment, then smiled for the first time since the memory transfer. "The other ones. The ones who are free. Rex is telling them we're going to help." The device displayed new text. "Kai has successfully interfaced with my memory systems. He now possesses the location and access codes for Dr. Vasquez's evidence, but we must retrieve it quickly. General Morrison's forces are closing in." "Where is it?" Mason asked. Kai looked up at his father, with eyes that seemed to hold knowledge far beyond his years. "It's in her house, Dad, but it's not safe there anymore. The bad men are watching it." Rex moved to the viewport and peered out carefully. His posture immediately changed to high alert, and the device displayed urgent text. "They have found us. We must leave immediately." Through the small window, Mason could see vehicles surrounding their container. Men in tactical gear were moving into position, and he could see the glint of weapons in the afternoon sun. "How many?" Mason asked. "Too many to fight," appeared on the screen. "But I have a plan. Kai, are you ready to help Rex one more time?" The boy nodded without hesitation, and Mason realized that whatever was about to happen would test all of their courage. Rex moved to a control panel that Mason hadn't noticed before and placed his paw on a red sensor. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the mobile laboratory. "Emergency protocols activated," appeared on the device screen. "Hold tight." The container suddenly lurched upward, and Mason realized with amazement that it was capable of flight. They were airborne, lifting away from the shipping yard as bullets pinged harmlessly off the reinforced hull below them. "This is impossible," Mason breathed, holding Kai as they rose higher into the sky. "Not impossible, Dad," Kai said, his voice filled with wonder and determination. "Just different. Rex is going to show us things we never knew existed." As they flew over Riverside, Mason looked down at the shipping yard, where his ordinary life had ended just hours before. Whatever came next, he knew there would be no going back to the simple existence of a forklift operator and his quiet son. The real adventure was just beginning. The flying container moved through the afternoon sky with remarkable stability, its advanced propulsion system humming quietly beneath them. Mason pressed his face to the viewport, watching the landscape scroll by below. They were heading north, away from Riverside, and toward what looked like mountainous terrain. "Where are we going?" Mason asked the communication device. "Safe house," appeared on the screen. "Dr. Vasquez prepared multiple locations for emergencies. This one is equipped with medical facilities and enhanced security systems." Kai was sitting cross-legged beside Rex, his small hands resting on the dog's back. The boy's expression was peaceful, but Mason could see the weight of Dr. Vasquez's memories still affecting him. Occasionally, Kai would tilt his head as if listening to something only he could hear. "Rex is talking to me," Kai explained when he noticed his father watching. "Not with the machine. In my head. He says it's easier now that we've connected." Mason felt a chill of concern. "Is that safe? Having someone else's thoughts in your head?" "It's not someone else's thoughts, Dad. It's like Rex and I are sharing the same thoughts. I can feel what he feels, and he can feel what I feel." The device displayed text. "The neural link is temporary but beneficial. Kai's natural abilities have been enhanced by exposure to my cognitive systems. This will help us work together more effectively." "But he's still my son," Mason said firmly. "He's still just a little boy." "Yes," appeared on the screen, "but a little boy with extraordinary capabilities. Dr. Vasquez's memories have shown Kai things about the enhancement program that even I did not fully understand." Kai looked up at his father with those serious dark eyes. "Dad, the bad things they're doing are worse than we thought. They're not just making smart animals. They're making animals that can hurt people in ways nobody would suspect." The container began to descend, and through the viewport, Mason could see they were approaching what looked like an abandoned research facility built into the side of a mountain. The structure was mostly hidden by forest, but Mason could make out solar panels and communication arrays disguised as trees. "Dr. Vasquez built this place," Kai said, his voice carrying the echo of inherited memories. "She knew she might need somewhere to hide if the program went wrong. They landed with barely a bump, and Rex immediately moved to the exit controls. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a hidden landing platform carved directly into the mountainside. Fresh, cool air flowed into the container, carrying the scent of pine trees and mountain streams. Rex stepped out first, his enhanced senses scanning for any signs of danger. After a moment, he barked softly to indicate it was safe. Mason and Kai followed, stepping onto the platform and getting their first full view of Dr. Vasquez's secret facility. The hidden entrance led into a complex that was far more sophisticated than anything Mason had imagined. The walls were lined with the same type of advanced equipment they'd seen in the mobile container, but on a much larger scale. Multiple computer systems hummed quietly, and Mason could see living quarters, a medical bay, and what appeared to be training facilities. "Welcome to Safe House Alpha," the device announced as they entered the main corridor. "This facility is completely off the grid and protected by multiple security systems." Kai walked ahead, moving through the facility as if he'd been there before. Mason realized that through Dr. Vasquez's memories, his son actually had been there before, in a sense. "The evidence vault is this way," Kai said, leading them down a corridor lined with reinforced doors. They entered a room that looked like a combination library and computer center. The walls were covered with monitors, and several secure storage units lined one side of the space. Rex moved to one of the storage units and pressed his paw against a biometric scanner. "Access denied," an automated voice announced. "Handler authorization required." Rex looked at Kai, and the boy nodded understanding. Kai placed his small hand on the scanner beside Rex's paw. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the scanner flickered, and Mason heard the sound of multiple locks disengaging. "Access granted. Welcome, Dr. Vasquez." Mason felt his blood run cold. "It thinks Kai is Dr. Vasquez." "In a way, I am," Kai said softly. "Her memories are part of me now. The scanner recognizes her thoughts in my mind." The storage unit opened, revealing dozens of data drives, documents, and what appeared to be video recordings. Rex began pulling items out with his teeth, arranging them on a nearby table with careful precision. "Everything is here," the device displayed. Financial records, communication intercepts, video evidence of unauthorized operations. Enough to bring down the entire program. Mason examined some of the documents, though much of the technical language was beyond his understanding. What he could understand was damning enough. Purchase orders for enhanced animals sold to private military companies, expense reports for operations in foreign countries, and communication logs showing coordination with known criminal organizations. "This is it," Mason said quietly. "This could actually stop them." Kai was studying one of the video files on a nearby monitor. The footage showed Rex and other enhanced animals being trained in what appeared to be assassination techniques. Mason watched in horror as dogs, cats, and even birds were taught to deliver targeted attacks with precision that seemed impossible for animals. "They're making them into killers," Mason whispered. "Not all of them," Kai said, his voice carrying Dr. Vasquez's knowledge. "Some of us were made for other things. Rex was designed for intelligence gathering and protective operations. But General Morrison changed the program after Elena started asking questions." Rex moved to another monitor and activated what appeared to be a communication system. The screen filled with video feeds from multiple locations, showing other enhanced animals in various situations. Some were in military facilities, others appeared to be in urban environments, and a few looked like they were in the wild. "The network" appeared on the device screen. All enhanced subjects maintain contact through encrypted channels. Dr. Vasquez built the system to monitor their welfare and coordinate rescue operations when necessary. One of the video feeds caught Mason's attention. It showed a German Shepherd that looked remarkably similar to Rex, but this one was in what appeared to be a suburban backyard with a family. Children were playing with the dog, completely unaware of its enhanced nature. "That's Shadow," Kai said, reading Rex's thoughts. "He's pretending to be a normal pet to hide from the bad men, but he's helping to protect that family from criminals who want to hurt them." Another feed showed a cat moving through what looked like a corporate office building at night. The animal moved with purpose and intelligence, clearly on some kind of mission. "Stealth reconnaissance," the device explained. "Luna is gathering evidence of corporate corruption for a whistleblower who was too frightened to act alone." Mason began to understand the scope of what Dr. Vasquez had created. The enhanced animals weren't just weapons or tools. They were individuals with their own personalities and moral codes, capable of making decisions about right and wrong. "Rex," Mason said, looking at the German shepherd who had started this incredible journey, "what do you want to do with this evidence?" Rex moved to the communication device and seemed to concentrate intently. New text appeared. "Doctor, Vasquez wanted to give the enhanced subjects a choice. Free those who wish to live normal lives, protect those who choose to continue their missions, and expose the criminal elements that have corrupted the program." "And you trust us to help with that?" Mason asked. "Kai has proven himself capable of understanding our nature. You have proven yourself willing to protect your family and innocent others. Together, we can complete Dr. Vasquez's mission." Kai was studying another video feed, this one showing what appeared to be a news broadcast. The reporter was standing outside a government building, discussing recent allegations about illegal military contracts. "Dad, look," Kai said excitedly. "Someone's already starting to investigate." Mason read the news ticker scrolling across the bottom of the screen. "Senator Williams announces investigation into unauthorized military enhancement programs. Whistleblower protection promised for program insiders." "Senator Williams," appeared on the device. "Dr. Vasquez was preparing to contact her when she was killed. The senator has been investigating military contractor fraud for 2 years." Rex barked excitedly and moved to another computer terminal. He activated what appeared to be a secure communication system and began what sounded like a complex conversation in his electronic language. "What's he doing?" Mason asked. "Contacting Senator Williams' office," Kai translated. "Rex is setting up a meeting to transfer the evidence." The idea of walking into a government building with classified materials and an enhanced military dog struck Mason as incredibly dangerous. "Won't they arrest us?" "Senator Williams has immunity powers for congressional investigations," the device explained. "She can offer protection in exchange for testimony." Mason looked at his son, who was calmly organizing evidence files with the efficiency of someone far older than 5. The boy moved with purpose and understanding that seemed to come from his connection with both Rex and Dr. Vasquez's memories. "Kai, are you sure you want to do this? Once we turn over this evidence, there's no going back to our quiet life in Riverside." Kai looked up at his father, and Mason saw something in his son's eyes that hadn't been there before. Confidence, purpose, a sense of belonging that had been missing since his mother left. "Dad, our quiet life wasn't really that quiet, was it? I wasn't talking. You were sad all the time. We were both just waiting for something to happen." The simple truth of his son's words hit Mason like a physical blow. Kai was right. They'd been existing, not living, going through the motions of a normal life while both of them struggled with loneliness and uncertainty. "This is something important," Kai continued. "Rex needs us, and those other animals need us too. We can help them be free." Rex approached Mason and sat directly in front of him, meeting his eyes with that unnaturally intelligent gaze. The communication device displayed new text. "Mason, your son has gifts that extend beyond communication with enhanced subjects. Dr. Vasquez's memories have shown him possibilities for his own future that you cannot imagine. But those possibilities require courage from both of you." "What kind of possibilities?" Mason asked. Kai answered before the device could display a response. "I can help other people who are different, Dad. People who are special but don't know how to use their gifts. Rex isn't the only one who's different. There are humans with abilities too." The revelation sent a chill through Mason. "What do you mean?" "Dr. Vasquez wasn't just studying animal enhancement," the device explained. "She discovered that certain humans possess natural cognitive abilities that mirror what the enhancement program was trying to create artificially. Kai is one of these individuals." Mason felt the world shifting around him once again. First, his son had started speaking. Then they'd discovered an enhanced dog with human-level intelligence. Now he was learning that Kai himself possessed abilities that went beyond normal human capabilities. "The program that created me was based on research into naturally occurring human psychic abilities," Rex's text continued. "Dr. Vasquez believed that humans like Kai could form partnerships with enhanced animals that would benefit both species." "Partnerships?" Mason asked. Kai nodded enthusiastically. "Like what Rex and I have, but permanent. We could help solve crimes, find missing people, stop bad guys. We could be heroes, Dad. The idea of his 5-year-old son becoming some kind of superhero was both thrilling and terrifying. Mason looked around the sophisticated facility, at the evidence of corruption and conspiracy they had uncovered, at the enhanced dog who had trusted them with secrets that could topple governments. "This is all happening so fast," Mason said quietly. "I know," Kai replied, moving to stand beside his father. "But sometimes important things happen fast. You taught me that when you decided to move us to Riverside. You said sometimes you have to be brave and make big changes." Rex moved to the viewport and looked out at the forest surrounding the facility. His posture suggested he was listening to something beyond normal hearing range. "Company approaching" appeared on the device. Multiple vehicles, approximately 15 minutes away. Mason felt his heart rate spike. "General Morrison's people? Unknown, but we should prepare for departure." Kai was already moving, gathering the most important evidence files with practiced efficiency. "We need to get this to Senator Williams before they catch us." Rex activated several systems around the facility, and Mason could hear the sound of security protocols engaging. Blast shields covered the windows, and he could feel the subtle vibration of defensive systems coming online. "The facility will protect itself," the device explained, "but we cannot remain here safely." They moved back through the corridors toward the landing platform, where their flying container waited. As they loaded the evidence into the mobile laboratory, Mason caught sight of distant headlights winding through the mountain roads. "They found us faster than expected," he said grimly. "It doesn't matter," Kai replied with surprising calm. "We have what we came for. Now we finish what Dr. Vasquez started." Rex sealed the container and moved to the flight controls. As they lifted off from the hidden platform, Mason looked down at the approaching vehicles, dark SUVs with government plates, moving with the coordination of a military operation. "Where to now?" Mason asked as they climbed into the evening sky. "Washington, D.C. appeared on the device screen. "Time to change the world." Kai settled in beside Rex, his small hand resting on the dog's back. In the glow of the console lights, Mason could see his son's face had taken on an expression of determination that belonged on someone much older. "Dad," Kai said softly, "I'm not scared anymore." Mason realized that he wasn't scared either. For the first time since his wife had left, he felt like they were exactly where they belonged. Flying through the night sky with an enhanced dog and a son who possessed abilities beyond imagination, carrying evidence that would expose a conspiracy and free dozens of remarkable animals from a life of exploitation. It wasn't the quiet life he'd planned for them, but it was the life they were meant to live. The flight to Washington took most of the night, with Rex navigating through air traffic corridors that seemed to exist specifically for their unusual aircraft. Mason dozed fitfully, his dreams filled with images of enhanced animals and government conspiracies. When he woke, the first light of dawn was painting the sky pink and gold over the nation's capital. "We're here," Kai announced, his voice carrying the excitement of a child, seeing something new combined with the knowledge of someone who understood the gravity of their mission. Through the viewport, Mason could see the familiar landmarks of Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument, the Capitol Building, and the sprawling complex of government offices that controlled the most powerful nation on Earth. Somewhere in those buildings, Senator Williams was waiting for evidence that could change everything. Rex guided their container to a landing zone that appeared to be a private airfield on the outskirts of the city. As they touched down, Mason could see several black sedans waiting nearby, along with what appeared to be a medical vehicle and a mobile command center. "Senator Williams' security team," the device explained. "She has been preparing for our arrival since Rex made contact last night." The container door opened, and they were immediately approached by a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore a simple business suit, but her bearing suggested someone accustomed to authority and high-stakes situations. "I'm Senator Williams," she said, extending her hand to Mason, "and you must be the family that Rex told us about." Mason shook her hand, still amazed at the idea of a United States senator having a conversation with an enhanced dog. "I'm Mason, and this is my son, Kai." "Hello, Kai," Senator Williams said, kneeling down to the boy's level. "Rex tells me you're very special." "Rex is special too," Kai replied seriously. "And so are all his friends. We brought you proof of the bad things that happened to them." Senator Williams's expression grew grave as Rex approached, carrying a secure case containing the evidence in his mouth. I've been investigating rumors about illegal enhancement programs for 2 years. If what Rex has told me is true, this evidence could expose the largest military contractor fraud in American history. She led them to the Mobile Command Center, which was equipped with secure communication systems and analysis equipment. Inside, Mason met Senator Williams' chief investigator, a man named David Chen, who specialized in military contractor oversight. We need to verify this evidence quickly, Chen explained as Rex placed the case on a secure examination table. General Morrison has been calling in favors all night, trying to have this investigation shut down before it starts. Kai placed his hand on the case's biometric lock, and it opened immediately. Chen's eyes widened as he saw the contents. Data drives, video recordings, financial documents, and what appeared to be classified military communications. This is extensive, Chen said, beginning to examine the materials. If this is authentic, it's enough to bring down Morrison and dozens of his associates. Rex moved to a computer terminal and activated the communication device. Text appeared on the screen. All evidence has been verified through blockchain authentication. Dr. Vasquez embedded cryptographic signatures in every file to prevent forgery. Senator Williams studied the documentation with the practiced eye of someone who had spent decades reviewing complex legislation and investigations. This is damning, she said quietly. Enhanced animals sold to private military companies, unauthorized operations in foreign countries, assassination contracts with criminal organizations. One of the video files showed Rex himself, but much younger, being trained in what appeared to be lethal combat techniques. Mason watched in horror as trainers taught the dog how to incapacitate humans without leaving obvious signs of animal attack. They were turning them into living weapons, Senator Williams said, her voice filled with disgust. Not all of us accepted that training, appeared onto Rex's device. Dr. Vasquez helped many of us resist the more violent aspects of the program, but those who refused were scheduled for termination. Kai was studying another video file, this one showing Dr. Vasquez in what appeared to be her final days. The woman looked exhausted and frightened, but her voice was steady as she spoke to the camera. If you're watching this, it means they've probably killed me, Dr. Vasquez said on the recording. The enhancement program has been corrupted beyond recognition. What began as an attempt to create animal partners for military and rescue operations has become a factory for producing biological weapons. Mason felt a chill as he watched the woman whose memories now lived in his son's mind. Dr. Vasquez continued, Rex and the other enhanced subjects are not weapons. They are individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, and moral codes. They deserve the same protections we would give to any intelligent being. She was brave, Kai said softly, tears running down his cheeks. She knew they were going to hurt her, but she kept trying to help Rex and the others. Senator Williams placed a gentle hand on Kai's shoulder. Because of her courage, and because of yours, we can make sure her work wasn't wasted. Chen was reviewing financial documents that showed the scope of the illegal operations. These contracts are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, he said in amazement. Morrison has been selling enhanced animals to everyone from drug cartels to foreign intelligence services. Rex activated another communication channel, and the screens around them filled with video feeds from enhanced animals around the world. Mason saw the cat they had observed earlier, now documenting criminal activity in what appeared to be a corporate boardroom. Another feed showed a bird perched outside a window, clearly recording a conversation between two men discussing illegal weapons sales. The network, Senator Williams said with growing understanding. They're all gathering evidence. We've been building a case for months, appeared on Rex's device. But we needed human allies to help us present it to the authorities. One of the feeds caught Mason's attention. It showed the German shepherd named Shadow, the one they'd seen playing with children in a suburban backyard. But now Shadow was in what appeared to be a dangerous situation, surrounded by armed men in a warehouse. Shadow's in trouble, Kai said, reading Rex's thoughts. He found something important, but the bad men caught him. Rex immediately activated what appeared to be an emergency communication system. His electronic barks and whines took on an urgent quality, and Mason could see responses coming in from multiple sources on the network. What's happening? Senator Williams asked. Rescue operation, the device explained. Shadow discovered a facility where General Morrison is holding captured enhanced subjects. He was gathering evidence when he was detected. The video feed from Shadow's location showed the dog surrounded but not captured. His enhanced abilities were clearly superior to normal canine capabilities, as he moved with tactical precision that kept him ahead of his pursuers. "Can we help him?" Kai asked urgently. Rex looked at the boy, then at Senator Williams. Shadow needs immediate extraction, but official rescue operations would take too long to coordinate. Senator Williams studied the tactical situation on the screens. "Where is this facility?" 30 miles outside Washington, the device responded. Abandoned industrial complex that Morrison has been using as a black site detention center. Mason felt his protective instincts warring with his desire to help. The idea of putting Kai in danger was terrifying, but he could see his son's determination to help Shadow and the other captured animals. "There's another way," Kai said suddenly, his voice carrying the certainty that came from his connection with Rex and Dr. Vasquez's memories. "We don't need to fight them. We just need to make them too busy to stop us." Rex's ears perked up with interest, and text appeared on the device. "Explain." Kai moved to the communication systems and placed his hands on the interface. Immediately, Mason could see his son connecting with the enhanced animal network in ways that even Rex hadn't expected. "All the evidence we've gathered," Kai said, his voice taking on an authority that seemed impossible for a 5-year-old. "We don't just give it to Senator Williams. We give it to everyone, every news station, every website, every social media platform, all at the same time." Senator Williams' eyes widened. "A coordinated information release, simultaneous disclosure to multiple sources to prevent suppression. While they're scrambling to control the information leak," Kai continued, "Rex and I can get to Shadow and the others." Mason grabbed his son's arm gently. "Kai, that's too dangerous. These people have already killed Dr. Vasquez. They won't hesitate to hurt a child." "Dad, they're already trying to hurt us," Kai replied with simple logic. "But now we have friends, lots of friends." The screens around them showed enhanced animals in dozens of locations, all responding to Kai's communication through the network. Birds taking flight toward the detention facility, cats emerging from hiding places throughout the city, dogs breaking away from their handlers or escaping from secure facilities. "They're all coming," Rex confirmed through the device. "Kai has activated a rescue protocol that Dr. Vasquez programmed but never expected to use." Senator Williams was coordinating with her staff to prepare for the massive information release. "We can have this evidence distributed to every major news outlet in the country within 2 hours," she said. "But are you sure you want to put yourselves at that kind of risk?" Mason looked at his son, who was calmly directing a complex operation involving dozens of enhanced animals across multiple states. Kai's transformation from a silent, withdrawn child to a confident leader seemed impossible, but Mason could see that this was who his son was meant to be. "We have to," Mason said quietly. "Not just for Rex and Shadow, but for all of them." The next 2 hours moved with the precision of a military operation. Senator Williams's team coordinated the information release while Rex prepared their flying container for what would likely be a combat mission. Kai remained connected to the enhanced animal network, directing movements and coordinating timing with skills that seemed far beyond his years. At exactly noon, the evidence hit every major news network simultaneously. Within minutes, the story was spreading across social media, traditional news outlets, and government communication channels. The scope of the scandal was so vast that no single organization could suppress it. "Morrison's people are in chaos," Chen reported, monitoring government communication channels. "They're getting calls from Congress, the Pentagon, and the White House demanding explanations." At the same moment, Rex launched their container toward the detention facility. Through the viewports, Mason could see other aircraft converging on the same location. But these weren't government vehicles. They were other enhanced animals, using abilities and equipment that Mason was only beginning to understand. The detention facility appeared to be a cluster of warehouses surrounded by high fences and guard towers. As they approached, Mason could see Shadow trapped in the central courtyard, still evading capture through sheer determination and enhanced reflexes. "There," Kai pointed to a building with no windows. "That's where they're keeping the others." Rex coordinated the rescue with tactical precision that would have impressed any military commander. Birds created distractions by disabling security cameras and communication equipment. Cats infiltrated the facility through ventilation systems and disabled alarm systems from within. Other dogs created diversionary attacks that drew guards away from the main detention area. Their container landed in the courtyard just as Shadow leaped aboard, exhausted but uninjured. Rex immediately moved to the building Kai had identified, using his enhanced strength to tear through reinforced doors that would have stopped normal animals. Inside, Mason saw something that made him sick to his stomach. Dozens of enhanced animals were trapped in small cages, many showing signs of abuse and neglect. Some appeared to be barely alive, while others had clearly been subjected to experiments that had damaged their enhanced abilities. "We're getting everyone out," Kai announced, his voice carrying both determination and compassion. The rescue operation took less than 30 minutes, but it felt like hours. Enhanced animals from across the network worked together to free their captured companions and load them into various aircraft and vehicles. Mason found himself helping to carry injured cats and dogs, amazed at how the rescued animals seemed to understand they were being saved. As they lifted off from the detention facility, Mason could see government vehicles arriving in the distance. But it was too late to stop the rescue or suppress the evidence. The story was already dominating every news cycle, and calls for congressional hearings were coming from both political parties. "Shadow's okay," Kai reported, translating for the exhausted German shepherd who was resting in the back of their container. "He says thank you for coming to get him." Rex moved to the communication device and displayed text. "Dr. Vasquez would be proud. We have accomplished what she could not do alone." Senator Williams' voice came through their secure communication channel. "Mason, Kai, Rex, you need to know that your actions today have changed everything. General Morrison has been arrested, along with 17 of his associates. The enhancement program is being shut down, and Congress is already discussing legislation to protect enhanced animals as a new category of intelligent beings." Mason felt a wave of relief wash over him. "What happens now?" "Now you get to choose," Senator Williams replied. "The enhanced animals who want to return to normal lives will be given new identities and homes. Those who want to continue their work will be offered legitimate positions with proper oversight and protection." Kai looked up at his father. "What do we choose, Dad?" Mason studied his son's face, seeing traces of Dr. Vasquez's wisdom, combined with the natural curiosity and courage that had always been uniquely Kai's. "What do you want to do, buddy?" "I want to help people," Kai said simply. "Rex and I together. We can find missing kids, stop bad guys, help people who are lost or scared." Rex moved closer to the boy and rested his head against Kai's shoulder. The communication device displayed partners. Always. 6 months later, Mason stood in the backyard of their new home in Virginia, watching Kai and Rex play fetch with a ball that seemed to defy gravity. Their lives had changed in ways he never could have imagined, but they had found something that had been missing since his wife left: purpose. Kai attended a special school designed for children with enhanced abilities, where he learned to control and develop his natural talents. Rex worked with a new government program that provided enhanced animals with meaningful careers in law enforcement, search and rescue, and environmental protection. "Dad!" Kai called out, running toward the house with Rex at his side. "Mrs. Peterson called, Tommy's missing again, and the police can't find him." Tommy was a 6-year-old boy with autism who had a tendency to wander away from home. The local police had searched for hours without success, but Mason knew that Rex's enhanced senses and Kai's ability to think like a frightened child would find the boy quickly. "Are you ready to go help?" Mason asked, grabbing the keys to their new vehicle, which was equipped with communication gear that allowed them to coordinate with the enhanced animal network. "We're always ready," Kai replied, with a grin that reminded Mason of the serious little boy who had first spoken to comfort an injured dog. As they drove toward the search area, Mason reflected on how much their lives had changed. They weren't just a father and son anymore. They were part of something larger, a network of enhanced animals and gifted humans working together to make the world a better place. Rex's electronic voice came through their communication system. "Contact established. Tommy is hiding in the old Miller barn, scared but unharmed. He heard our approach and is coming out now." 20 minutes later, they watched as Tommy ran into his mother's arms, safe and sound. Mrs. Peterson hugged Mason and Kai with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you both so much." As they drove home, Kai settled in the back seat with Rex, both of them tired but satisfied with another successful rescue. "Dad," Kai said sleepily, "do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Mason looked at his son in the rearview mirror, seeing a confident, capable boy who had found his place in the world. "I think she'd be amazed, buddy, just like I am every day." Rex's device displayed one final message: family, always family. And Mason knew that whatever challenges they might face in the future, they would face them together. A man, his extraordinary son, and a dog who had taught them both that being different wasn't something to hide from, but something to celebrate. The quiet shipping yard in Riverside seemed like a lifetime ago, but Mason wouldn't trade a single moment of the adventure that had brought them to where they belonged. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment below about where you're watching from. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who believes in the power of courage, friendship, and never giving up on those who need our help.